Well, hello there everyone. It's Sunday and time for a new episode of Record Collecting with a Quill. This week we're doing something special. We're going to talk mainly about one single album, but it's a very special album to me. It's my favorite album ever. It's an album by an American band called Captain Beyond, and the album is called Captain Beyond, the first one. A great album. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, some stories around it, and also show you a couple of different versions I have of it in my collection. But before we start, you know the drill. Make sure you subscribe and hit that little notice bell as well, and share with your friends if you think they enjoy this kind of stuff. Well, Captain Beyond, they were an American sort of a super group. They started out in 1971, and all the members came from previous careers or big bands or such. Starting out with Rod Evans, who was the first vocalist in Deep Purple. He sang on the first three Deep Purple albums. Did a great job, if you ask me. And then you have Larry Rhino Reinhardt on guitar, and you have Lee Dorman on bass, and they both came from a band called Iron Butterfly, was really successful as well around that time. And on drums you have a fantastic drummer called Bobby Caldwell. He came from Johnny Winter, and they started out in 1971 with an idea to sort of do a band with various time signatures and a lot of different influences. You have hard rock, you have jazz, you have Latin, and as I said, with different time signatures and a lot of moods, and you have long songs as well, which I really like. You have the album consists mainly of three major songs that all sort of intertwine into each other, which makes it for really cool listening. So starting out, this is the first American pressing of it, and the first release had this 3D sort of cover. Doesn't show, you can't really see it that well. It's sort of like the old postcards you had when you were a kid, and kids had it on Psycho Circus as well, sort of lenticular I think it's called. This is the first US pressing of a great album. As you can see, it's a rather cool figure they have here. Sort of, I don't know if he's the actual Captain Beyond. I have the first Japanese pressing. They used sort of a little bit of a different cover. They went with this guy instead for the whole sort of artwork. You have it on the Warner Brothers label, the green Warner Brothers. This is the first pressing, really nice one. This one was kind of hard to get a hold of, but have a super clean copy here. I'm really pleased with it. Sounds great as well. Then you have the first, for some reason, when they did a reissue of it, I believe this one is from 1976 in Japan, they went with the original. Then they started using the original cover, but you don't have the 3D sort of effect. It's just a regular photo. Otherwise it's quite more or less like the first US edition. I have also a third with the blue obi as well. Later one, I believe this one is from the 80s. Nice one, but you have a different label on this one. You have the red Polydor label. There's a fourth edition. I haven't got that one. It's kind of difficult with I believe it's the same cover as the first US pressing, but you have a sort of like a light yellow obi as well. Haven't got that one. It's not super difficult to find, but I haven't got around finding it yet, but someday I will eventually. I also have this Canadian copy as well, and there you have a really cool photo of the band as well. Sort of goes perfect with the music, sort of mysterious. And what can you say about it? Well, the music, as I said, it's a lot of different influences, but what I think it makes it such a great album is the songwriting is great, first and foremost, and also the playing from all of them. Rod Evans singing is really cool. As I said, I was quite fond of his singing on the first 3 Deep Purple albums. I can see why he didn't fit, and why they decided to go with the Angillan instead, knowing what direction Deep Purple was heading in. But for this music, Rod Evans is perfect. Some lot of emotion in his singing. And then you have the guitar and bass from Rhino and Lee. It's fantastic, great playing from both of them. Then great solos from Rhino, and then you have sort of the best thing of the album, sort of, is Bobby Caldwell's drumming. It's incredible. He's fast. He's got a lot of great, cool ideas you don't hear anywhere else on any other albums. A lot of cool stuff in weird time signatures as well, and precise. So really the sort of the focus point to some extent on this album. So if you're a drummer, you have to listen to it if you haven't heard it, because his drumming is exceptional. And as I said, the whole idea of long songs sort of mixing, going into each other, is really cool as well, and makes it it's one of those albums you listen, whenever you start to listen to it, you must listen to the end. You can't listen on just single songs. They recorded 2 more albums, one the year after directly, the first one came out in 1972. They recorded the second album, Sufficiently Breathless, in 1973. But Bobby Caldwell, the drummer, left the band before the recording of this album. So he's not on it, and I think the album lacks his drumming. This one is sort of more of a mellow album. You have a lot more of the Latin feel than on the first album. And you have a drummer who's not in any way near Bobby Caldwell in technique or sort of inventive ideas. But it's still a good album. There's some really cool songs on it. I have a folder here as well. This is a US pressing, nice one. I think actually I had some sort of came with a sort of an information sheet as well about the album. Don't know if it's some sort of promotional stuff or something. That's a cool one. You have to have it if you're into the first album, but it's not as good. I think my favorite song on this one is a track called Star Glow Energy. And then they disbanded, but started working again a couple of years later, and then they made the third album called Dawn Explosion in 1977. And this one, Bobby Caldwell is back on this one, but they have a different vocalist, a guy called Willie Deffin. Does a good job, but he's not Rod Evans. But there's some good songs on this one. I think I prefer this one a little bit more compared to Sufficiently Breathless, the second one. But I think that's mainly because Bobby Caldwell is drumming. He's such a great drummer. But some cool tracks on this one. And the backside here as well. It's still in shrink wrap. It's a US pressing. So, and actually, it's not a cutout. Usually, when you find the US pressing of this one, it's a cutout because I guess it didn't sell. Then a couple of years ago, they released this one, Lost and Found 72-73. And what this is demo recordings from before the first album. So you have a lot of rough versions of all the stuff that ended up on the first album. So if you like the first album, you have to get this one. Some really cool versions. And we also have an unreleased track called Uranus Highway that didn't make it on the album. It's would have fitted perfectly, but I don't know, maybe time constraints or something. And you also have a version of the song Icarus appeared on the third album, Dawn Explosion, but here you have it with Rod Evans. So a really nice find, and as I said, if you're a fan of the first album, this is mandatory to have in your collection, to hear sort of those rough versions. Also kind of cool to have, because there's not so much stuff. There's a couple of live recordings, available, but none of them. There's a great video recording of them from Montreux in 1971, I believe, and a couple of live recordings, but none of them really that great. They all lack something. I think the best one is from Texas 72, but I think that lacks a little bit of guitar. But there's also this one, a tribute to Captain Beyond, 1,000 Days of Yesterdays, where a little Swedish band called the QUILL recorded a version of the track Frozen Over, and also the intro, 1,000 Days of Yesterday intro. And that sort of leads us to why I decided to pick this album for this episode, because this album is been out of print for a long time. I think it was released in 1999, so it's well over 20 years. But for our new album, Live New, Borrowed and Blue, we actually found the master tapes when we recorded this, so we were able to remaster it, because I remember when this came out, we were a little bit displeased with the mastering. It's sort of harsh, but now we could finally sort of remaster it, and it sounds the way it should sound. So if you're into Captain Beyond, this is a cool album to have as well. But if you just want to hear QUILL play Captain Beyond, you can check out our new album. I remember it was really difficult to record it. As I said, all their stuff is quite difficult. There's odd time signatures, there's some really weird playing. So we had it was a hard time recording it. But I think listening back to it now, it's, as I said, it's well over 20 years since we recorded it. It still sounds rather good, actually. I'm quite going back to it, listening to it. I haven't heard it in years. I was quite pleased. We were also able to meet the guys, and they sort of reformed and played at the Sweden Rock Festival in 1999. And I think I have a picture. I can show it. There it comes. We were able to meet them backstage before the show, and the remaining Bobby Caldwell was on drums, and you had Ryan on guitar, and then they had some new members. But I remember speaking to Bobby Caldwell, and he said they had been in contact with Rod Evans, but he didn't want to do it for whatever reasons. He's sort of been out of the music scene now since 1980, when he started to he sort of tried to do a comeback with a bogus version of Deep Purple, and then no one has ever seen him ever since. But they were great guys, really cool. We spent a lot of time with them, but nothing really came out of that reunion. They did I think that was the only show they did in Europe, and they've been trying in various with various members over the years, sort of getting something going again. But so far I think they only made a couple of shows here and there in America, but hopefully they'll do something. I think Rhino died a couple of years ago, and Lee is dead as well, so Bobby and Rod is the only remaining guys still alive from the original lineup. But anyway, that was this episode about my favorite album. I have to show it again. We go with the first press, the Captain Beyond album. Something you really have to get into if you haven't heard it. Unfortunately, it's not available streaming, at least not on Spotify. I don't know about other streaming services, but I'm pretty sure you can listen to it on YouTube. Otherwise, go out and find the album. It's available on CD as well, but we all know it's way cooler to have it on vinyl. Also, make sure you subscribe to the QUILL's all social media. It's the QUILL Sweden. We released a new single this Friday called Children of the Sun from the new album Live New Borrowed Blue. It's a rather cool track, so make sure you listen to that. It's available on all streaming platforms, and also a really cool lyric video as well here on our YouTube channel. So check that one out as well. And I will not post anything on the Spotify playlist this week, since the album is not available there, but look it up on YouTube or go buy it on vinyl, CD or tapes or whatever. It's a fantastic album. You won't be sorry. Anyway, cheers. Thanks for listening. See you all again next week. Bye for now.